Good morning, and thank you for joining us. My name is Valencia C., and I serve as Vice Chair of the Senate Democratic Caucus. Our caucus spent the past few months listening to the concerns of Georgians. During those discussions, forums, and one-on-one constituent meetings, we heard from many things. Topping the minds of most of Georgians is the state of the economy, the state of Georgia families, the state of education, and a desire to fix what is broken in our state government. Senate Democratic Caucus took those voters' concerns back to our policy committee, rolled up our sleeves, and got to work. We spent several days in a retreat in Warm Springs, Georgia, putting together the legislative plan of action aiming at fixing what is broken. Loud and clear, we heard that our citizens want a strong and prosperous Georgia. To get back to building communities that work, we will need to make choices and changes in both government and our private economy practice. These changes require best thinking from all of us, Democrats and Republicans. Today, we stand before you to roll out a series of initiatives we believe provide the sort of action Georgians want, including building a strong economy, building strong families, creating educational opportunities, and creating an honest government that works for everyone. This first set of initiatives began by creating an honest government that works for everyone, and we have assembled a legislative packet that we believe will improve ethics in government, create fairness in taxation, fight voter suppression, and fix government so it works. I would like to introduce our caucus chair, Senator Doug Stoner, to preview our ethics in government
Caucus. And as one of our first pieces of legislation on having honest government that works, we're going to be introducing in the coming week the Georgia Ethics Enforcement Act. And what is different about what's been done in the past? Very simple. In the past, we've been overseeing ourselves. And what this will do is different from that. And also will guarantee a permanent funding source. So what we're rolling out is a constitutional amendment that we're going to go to the voters and ask to approve, which would require us to spend each year on what the budget is, 1/10 of 1% of the state budget on ethics. And the state of Alabama has done this. I don't see why we in Georgia cannot do what something they have done in Alabama. And that way we have a permanent funding source for the Ethics Commission that we're going to be recreating. The other part of that is instead of us overseeing ourselves, we're going to ask that have the Supreme Court Justice of the Georgia Supreme Court to appoint 3 members to this new commission. And we will appoint the Chief Judge of the Appeals Court also to appoint 2 members. And we will ask them obviously to ask for diversity in those appointments. But at the end of the day, the point of this is to have an independent commission that is permanently funded, that cannot be defunded, as what's happened in the last several years on these issues. And so again, this is honest government at work, and we're going to fix this. This past year, very quickly, to make a point, our Ethics Commission could not send out certified mail. I mean, because of budget cuts. And due to that fact, they could not notify members of this legislature who had potentially had fines. And again, they had to cut the fines because they couldn't actually notify them under the law, so they're required to cut the fines. We lost nearly $7 million in fines to the Ethics Commission because of the simple thing of not being able to send out mail. So this is action that's needed, needs to be fixed so it works. And again, it's creating an independent Ethics Commission that's independently funded permanently and is independent of us in a sense of oversight. Now, at this point, as part of also of our package, Senator Lester Jackson, who is our deputy whip, who unfortunately could not be here today, is also going to be introducing another piece of legislation, which is called eliminating stealth taxes. And what do I mean by that? Eliminating stealth taxes has to do with our fees that we collect that we passed in the legislature. Well, as happened over the last several years with these fees, and I'll give you an example of that. A lot of y'all have heard of the Solid Waste Fund, the Hazardous Waste Fund. Those are very ones you've heard of in the past that we collect. An example of the Hazardous Waste Fund, you collect $1 that's paid every time you get new tires. Well, over the last several years, most of that money has not been used for the purposes it was stated for. And so citizens have, the distrust they currently have, all we're doing is encouraging more distrust. And the fact that we say we're going to raise these fees to be used for a specific purpose, and then we fail to do so. And so what we're going to put out is a constitutional amendment that Senator Jackson's going to be authoring, along with some companion legislation, that will require that 80% of the fees that we impose will go to the programs that they were designed for. To give you some examples of what's happened the last few years, we have the Emergency 911 Assistance Fund that was passed back in 2007. It's a fee that's been collected since then. $36 million has been collected. As far as we can tell, zero has been spent on that issue. Same goes with the Hazardous Waste Fund. Since 2010, we collected nearly $17 million. Only $2.9 million was spent on what it was intended for. The rest was put into the general budget. And finally, the Solid Waste Trust Fund, again, another example. We collected fees of nearly $6 million in 2010, excuse me, and we only spent $687,000. And so it's a sleight of hand. It's a shell game that we're telling the voters, and you wonder why they have a distrust when we come to them to ask for very important issues to fund. So this constitutional amendment, to give the voters the chance to make it very clear to us that when we go and ask for a fee, it's not some hidden tax, that it will be actually used for the purpose. Now, at this time, I'd like to turn over to our whip, Senator Fort, who's going to talk to us about both voter access and fighting voter suppression. Senator Fort.
Good morning, everyone. Over the last 8 or 9 years, we have seen attempts here in the legislature to suppress voter participation with various voter ID laws and other methods. The opposition, the other side, has introduced any number of bills to make it more difficult for the voting booth. We think we should be going in the other direction, and that's why we have a couple of proposals. One that I think is particularly exciting, and that is same-day voter registration. We can say, theoretically, we've fixed the problems that we've had in voter ID. We have said that, we have not seen very many cases of people walking up to the ballot, walking up to the voting booth and voting someone else's ballot. But regardless, I would think that any issues regarding voter identification have been eliminated. And if that's the case, then this proposal for same-day voter registration, I think, is an exciting proposal to the extent that a person can walk up, register that same day, and then vote provisionally, a provisional ballot, so that within a certain amount of days, they can come back and verify all of the information that's been provided. I think that would put Georgia on the path to greater voter access. Even as we speak, Georgia ranks very low. One analysis is given Georgia 39 out of 100% on voter access. I think this proposal, along with the Independent Ethics Commission, will form the core of voters becoming more and more sure that the access to the ballot and honest government is a reality and not just a theory. So we're excited about that. And at this time, I'd like to introduce Senator Jason Carter to discuss Fix It So It Works campaign in his bill on an independent redistricting commission.
Thank you very much. One of the problems with our political system now is that the rules of the game are infected with partisanship. And the redistricting session that we just observed is going to be more costly less efficient, and generate a system of government that, again, is infected with a partisanship because of the way we draw the district lines. And last year, Senator Hardy Davis and I presented a piece of legislation that would call for both a statutory commission that would be an independent redistricting commission and a constitutional amendment to create an independent redistricting commission as well to prevent that partisanship from infecting the rules of the game. And this is something that has bipartisan support. In fact, our proposal that is currently pending and awaiting a hearing in the Reapportionment and Redistricting Committee, our proposal is based on Governor Sonny Perdue's, who's a Republican governor's Blue Ribbon Commission on redistricting reform and an independent redistricting commission. It is virtually identical to the legislation that was dropped by the governor's Republican floor leaders during the last legislative session, and we think that it represents a great opportunity to, again, fix the government so that it works better for the people of Georgia, and we look forward to having that come before the Reapportionment and Redistricting Committee. Again, the purpose of this is to create a commission that is independent of the legislature and independent of the people who draw districts for themselves, rather than drawing districts that work best for voters and for the people of Georgia. So the bipartisan support that it should enjoy is something that we also look forward to. And with that, we'll obviously answer questions at the end, but I would like to introduce Senator Kurt Thompson to discuss his hot lanes moratorium.
Kurt Thompson and I have the distinction of representing the district with about 11 of the 15 miles of the current constructed hot lanes in my district, and it's sort of an example of how government is not working. And as part of our Fix It So It Works plan and our rollout here, my bill is going to introduce a 3-year moratorium on further hot lane construction that has not already been approved, so that we can further study this issue. We do know that other states have implemented successfully hot lanes programs, but not the way we rolled ours out. Because basically what we did is we decided to go after a grant, not go after a solution to the problem of traffic along the 85 corridor in my district, or the 75 corridor where the recent hot lane proposal was actually pulled from. Basically a situation where you try to fix a problem on the cheap and you try to fix it quickly, where you're just simply going after a grant and not looking at what is this going to do to the area, is an example simply of how this system is broken the way we're currently doing it. And this moratorium would give us the time to take a look at these proposals, look at the cities that have successfully implemented them, and figure out a way, can it be done here? There is always a concern in government where everybody pays taxes for the roads that we're given and everybody pays taxes for services, of creating a system where basically individuals with more money can pay to buy better services. And so you can get individual better outcomes because you have more money to go out and buy individual better outcomes, but you haven't improved the congestion, not in my district, not the way this was implemented, and you haven't improved the environment or the exhaust emissions, not in my district, not where these areas are. These hot lanes have been proposed, not in the way it's been done. And so this 3-year moratorium would give us that time to take a look at what is the best way to do it. Is there a best way to do it? Because it was, since the conclusion was first time we want a grant because we want some money, and you worked backwards from that conclusion, there was no assessment, will this work in a city like Atlanta? Other cities, the reason this grant was even available is other cities decided it wouldn't work in their city. And we needed to have the chance to say that, and that is what this 3-year moratorium would do, is give us the chance to look at it, see if it in fact would work, and if it is going to work, how to do it in the best way possible so that it fixes the congestion and emissions problems on the 85 corridor and the 75 corridor or anywhere else that they're being built, not something that simply we're going to get a grant for the purposes of getting a grant because we want a grant, which sounds more like an episode of The Office than it does a way to run a state. Thanks.
Is going to be, I want to introduce Senator C if she gets a chance here. She's going to be introducing a bill that's called Smart Taxation. And what that is about an independent panel to review the cost of tax subsidies that we currently do in the state budget, which latest numbers, which may be a little outdated, we were subsidizing folks to the tune of $1.6 billion a year in revenues that we do not currently collect. And Senator C is going to be introducing a piece of legislation this year which will require us to take a review of those tax subsidies. Now, we've done a review in the sense of looking at of what we're doing, but we're not doing a review in the sense of do these actually work? Do they actually create jobs that they're promised on? So this is an independent panel that would be created that would actually look at any proposed, current ones, excuse me, and see if they're working. And if they're not working, then we need to eliminate them. And any future ones, what would they actually do? Would they actually create jobs? And so we're asking for verifiable results, or as Ronald Reagan used to say, trust but verify. When it comes to issues. And so on this issue, we're giving away $1.6 billion a year in taxes that otherwise we should be collecting. And I think the voters of this state want to make sure that if we're doing that, we're doing it in a responsible way. Senator C, I don't know if you want to make some comments on that.
Basically, we're going to get it together in terms of the bill itself. We're planning to get it drafted and dropped, so you all will have a copy. But we do have a briefing in our packet that we will submit today, but look forward to seeing what we have planned that to further make sure that what we are currently doing is not the way it should be done to get the best results Georgians need.